In My Hero Academia, I bet you thought that One For All couldn't get any more broken, but you'd actually be wrong there, because there is still a way that One For All could get much more broken than it already is, making Deku almost impossible to defeat for anybody, even someone like Prime All Might. So here are the ways that I believe Deku could awaken the quirks within One For All to become even more broken, so he'd be able to defeat characters like All For One, Shigaraki, and All Might really easily. But first, I want to talk about this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Everyone has something that they want to learn or get better at, but those aren't the only reasons to join Skillshare. For me, I found Skillshare really amazing for brushing up on my time management skills and learning new information about video marketing to make sure my videos make it to your eyes so we can be sitting here together right now. Skillshare gives you greater control over your path in life, and I've always been a big procrastinator, and it makes it hard to stay consistent on YouTube sometimes. But thanks to some of the classes I've taken, like the time management and productivity class by Jacob Lamb, I've learned how to structure my day in a way that lets me get all of my work done and get uploads daily out to you, my wonderful viewing audience. So I need you to stop procrastinating and use the link in my description to get one full free month of Skillshare to finally take control of your career and your career path. Skillshare has hundreds of career-focused classes, and with the new year rolling in, now's the perfect time to get started. There's even classes on making your own career path if the usual ones don't fit you, like being a YouTuber, which is what I do. This year, using Skillshare, I'm planning on learning everything I can to really learn how I can explore more creative ways to tell stories and analyze anime with you guys. So after I take some classes to help me find my perfect style, I want you to be right there beside me as a better version of yourself by taking advantage of this free month of Skillshare. The first 1,000 people to use the link will get one free month trial using the link in the description, so get to it, because I know that thinking about the future can be intimidating, but no goal is too small, and we have every advantage at our disposal like Skillshare. So thank you to them for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. First of all, we have the Flow quirk, which is a quirk of All Might's previous master, and that quirk I think could evolve into free form flight. An awakening for Float would allow Deku to move freely to control his flight to make him float in every direction, something which people have pointed out to me isn't exactly how Deku's float works currently. With this awakening, he'd be able to pretty much outright fly in any direction and move around like Nejire or Superman through the air with complete control and grace. Now, Deku has already picked up some training on how to stay in the air from Ochako during his training before the most recent war arc, and we have seen that he is extremely proficient with using his air force to push himself forward and using float to make sure that he doesn't keep falling, which kind of mimics the effect of flying, but it's not proper just full out flying, right? And I think that if Deku was able to do that, that would really upgrade his kit in a lot of ways. The next quirk we have is Smoke Screen, and I think that could evolve into a quirk called Smoke Ward. An awakening for Deku's Smoke Screen would potentially do one of two things. First off, I just think that shooting out smoke and not being able to control it is whack, so we'd give Deku control over the smoke so he can move it around freely. But more importantly, I think Deku should be able to sense through the smoke so he knows the location of everyone inside the smoke and everything. Much like how Hawks has awareness through his feathers that let him even hear what's being said, basically just through the small vibrations that they pick up. I think Deku's Smoke Screen quirk should work very much in this way, with him being able to pick up the vibrations through the smoke to even hear conversations that are happening in it, and I'm sure he can achieve an effect very similar to this by somehow mixing Smoke Screen and Danger Sense together if he's capable of doing that. But all in all, I think being able to sense through the smoke would be extremely useful, and I think just the ability to control the smoke and move it in certain ways and in certain directions would be very, very useful, because let's say he's fighting a ranged opponent and they're waiting for him to come out of the smoke. What if the smoke just continues to follow him with him at the center or him at any point in it acting like he's at the center? That would be really, really disorientating, because as far away as you get, it's like a giant cloud is floating around Deku and it's making his way towards you as he's coming towards you. So it really just completely takes away all of your long range advantage. The next quirk inside of One For All that could evolve is Black Whip, and I think that could evolve into a quirk called Black Entity. Now, Deku has learned how to basically control Black Whip automatically, specifically during the Tartarus Escapees Vigilante Deku arc, with Black Whip constantly staying activated and acting as a six-legged pair of tendrils behind his body. I think seeing how reactionary Black Whip is to Deku's emotions and how it can be ran automatically, it'd be interesting to see a version of Black Whip that completely acts on its own during fights, attacking and stringing up enemies for Deku as it helps him move around and sets him up for attacks like it's a whole other person, calculating the movement for Deku, using his anger and his emotions as a conduit to understand what he wants to do the most. We've already seen it kind of acting like this when Black Whip was first activated in the fight against Monoma, when it was trying to capture Monoma, and it was acting in ways like it was just reading the situation based off of Deku's emotions and trying to reach that desired effect, with him still being very confused about how it was all working. But I think honing in on this ability for Black Whip to just be able to act on Deku's emotion in almost an automatic sense would be very, very useful. Next up, we have Danger Sense, and I think that could evolve into a quirk called Danger Reading. An awakening for Danger Sense would allow Deku to basically scan a person using everything that he knows about them and his nerd knowledge to determine how strong or potentially dangerous any given person or even situation is. Using this, Deku could run simulations in his head like he does when he plans, and he could take into account the level of danger in any given scenario before actually having to face that danger using mental imaging. This level of planning would put Deku pretty much on the level of All For One with planning, with him even having an inbuilt quirk to see the danger in any given situation so he could properly decide on how he's gonna move forward. And we know for Deku a lot of the times he tends to ignore the danger, especially to himself, but at least this way he would get a proper kind of briefing on any situation that he's gonna go into, as long as he's smart enough and knows all the different pieces that he has to put together in his investigation. The next quirk we have is Fajin, and I think that could evolve into a quirk called Absolute Fajin. Deku has to do repeated movements to build up kinetic energy from his Fajin. We've seen that even repetitive attacks will generate the energy for Fajin, but what if Deku faces an opponent that just continues to overwhelm him so he can't build that energy up? Well, what if Deku accumulated kinetic energy from Fajin from the attacks of his enemies? This would fit with Deku's crazy mindset, since of course he'd get some benefit of being hurt by a villain, but let's say someone sends Deku flying for multiple city blocks, that itself would charge him with Fajin energy, and he could burst back into the fight, which isn't quite as broken if you remember that Deku still doesn't have any way to heal. This would effectively be like an ultra ego form for Deku, I suppose, but I just think it'd be really, really cool to see, and it would bring out a different side of his personality, I'm sure, that we don't get to see all that often. Then we also have Gear Shift, which I believe could evolve into a quirk called Every Gear. Deku's Gear Shift is based around a car engine, but what if using knowledge from the modern age, he could get Gear Shift to mimic different kinds of engines to give it different stages and properties. We've seen what the car engine interpretation can do for Deku, but what if he pictured the stages of a rocket engine or even a fusion or electrical engine? Since quirks are all about your understanding of them, would this improve or outright change the nature of Gear Shift altogether? And lastly, we have One For All itself, which I believe could evolve into a quirk called One For Everyone. One For All has already reached singularity, but it's still fun to think of ways that the quirk could evolve. The ability to share One For All's power with others is the easiest thing that I could possibly think of, giving people a boost and lending them a hand like a true hero, while even being able to make your average person into a hero momentarily, like the final battle scene from Thor: Love and Thunder. Another awakening would obviously be to pass the One For All quirks onto other users individually instead of passing on the whole quirk, and doing this enough might actually make One For All safe for the average person to hold if it needs to be passed on after Deku. Overall, these are all things that I think Deku could learn how to do, and even though there's not a Skillshare class for how to use One For All, I definitely think that it's something that even characters like Deku would use, so please use the link in the description once again for the first 1,000 people to get a free month trial of Skillshare, and by clicking the link and signing up, you really help out my channel, so just think of it as a way of getting a full free month of amazing content for you to learn from, while also supporting one of your favorite creators. Both of us just kind of win there. So again, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring the video, and my next video I think is going to be a video talking about other quirk awakenings that can happen for other characters in the series. So keep your eye out for that. If we get any spoilers or anything soon, or the episode, we'll be talking about that as quickly as we can on the channel, and I'll see you guys later. It's Pineapple. Peace.